So, welcome everybody back to Veil of Sound. And it is a real pleasure for me to interview somebody pre-Roadburn that I'm going to be able to see at Roadburn. And when you are watching this, it's already like 2 or 3 weeks after Roadburn. So, we are able to talk about a lot of stuff. So, first of all, TJ from Inter Arma, thanks for joining the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And it's especially my pleasure because we have to talk about a lot of things. And I would like to start with the usual question that we always ask here on the Veil of Sound is, what is your band merch of the day? What are you wearing? I think I have an idea, but I'm not 100% sure. Zeppelin. Yes. Awesome.
Not just any Zeppelin. It's the first record out, the cover, but it's all tie-dye. I love this shirt. Love this shirt.
It looks amazing and it suits you perfectly. So if anybody asks, I'm wearing one of my favorite foundations or good causes, the Hardcore Help Foundation. If you want to know a little bit more, we're going to put the link down here so you can watch what they're doing and support them. And yeah, it's a good cause. So, TJ, let's dive right into the new album. I mean, when this is out, this interview, the record is also already out for a few weeks. New Heaven. And I've, of course, read some lyrics and I've read some promos for it. And first question, is the title meant sarcastically?
Well, the backstory is it kind of did start as a joke.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the van and we were talking about touring with Deaf Heaven and how we were just joking about how they don't like us anymore. I don't even know what the genesis of all this was, but the joke was Deaf Heaven doesn't like us anymore, and somehow that evolved into their new heaven. And that the phrase just stuck with Mike, and he wrote it down unbeknownst to all the rest of us. And then we never know what the songs are. Well, sometimes we know in advance what the songs are going to be called, but usually it's right before we get into the studio. And he said New Heaven, and we were like, what the fuck does that mean? And he told us the story. And so it sort of evolved into I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. The world is not in a great state right now. I think everybody can agree on that. And
yeah,
the kind of an underlying theme of our music, I mean, just conceptually, sonically, whatever, is there's bleakness, but we always try to have a positive attitude and think that things will get better. I mean, fuck, they have to get better, right? So, and New Heaven is the kind of the embodiment of that, of making things better. Try and do good and put joy into the world and create a new heaven, so to speak.
Would you agree that when we look at the times we're living in, for transparency's sake, for everybody, we are recording this on Sunday, the 14th of April, roughly 20 hours after the start of the bombing of Israel at the hands of Iran. So another conflict swelling up to drive us all down the spiral into death and everything. Would you say that at this very moment, when we just look at our planet, our society, and the things and directions we're going, it's difficult to see that silver lining?
100%. I mean, and that's why you almost kind of have to persevere and push through the madness and the darkness, because there, otherwise what the fuck are we here for? There has to be some hope in the world. And yeah, I mean, I when I found out about that yesterday, I did a cover band, just a one-off thing with some buddies of mine, and it was at a brewery, and we're all standing around drinking nice beer, and there was a super killer jazz quartet playing, sunny day, beautiful weather, and then somebody's like, "Did you hear what's going on with Iran and the drones?" And it's just like, fuck, I can't. And yes, you just have to fucking hold out hope that it's gonna get better, and there hopefully will be some sort of new heaven.
Yeah, we got to hope for that. Like, otherwise. And I also think that, and that is something that I like in your work as well in general. You have been speaking about that silver lining, which I also think is very important. Without it, we're doomed, right?
Yeah. And also, if you, without it, we're doomed. I mean, that's, you perfectly said.
Then when I look at some of your track titles, they are even prophetic in a way, right? Because you have one of the track titles on the new record, which is the children that were forgotten, or whose bombing, like, it is about children who were not bombed, if I get it rightly. And when I look at that, I mean, like, that is dark. And at the same time, it seems very appropriate for our times. Can you tell us whether that song in specific, whether that is like you and the guys trying to look at the world we're living in?
Well, let me preface that with a couple of things. First off, Mike, the vocalist, writes all the lyrics.
Yeah.
And secondly, that song in particular was written at least a month and a half before, everything that took place on October 7th. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, it was just purely coincidence and pure, like you said, prophetic, great way to put it. And it's very much an anti-genocide song.
Yeah. Fits to our times.
Right. And yeah, you're 100% correct. It's prophetic and appropriate for everything that's going on right now. And when as soon as that happened, I mean, obviously we were all in shock and horror, but we all went, oh shit, the children the bombs overlooked. We hope people don't read into this the wrong way, because I'm anti any government killing anybody. I was literally having a conversation with my lady about the death penalty, and I was like, no, absolutely not. I'm not in favor of the death penalty. I don't believe in all this Christian Judeo eye for an eye bullshit. So any fucking government killing anybody for any means, I don't back, period.
Does Virginia still have a death penalty? Because I don't know.
That's a great question.
Thank you.
Because I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one. We were very heavily Democrat for quite a few years, and now we have a Republican governor. So who knows what the fuck he'll do? But yeah.
I mean, like, as much as I love the states and the society and the people, I think you guys are like going the wrong way in a lot of ways. But anyway, let's get back to New Heaven.
I agree.
What struck me, and I did a little research. It was a quick research. It is the first time ever since The Cavern that the title track is opening the record. Usually your title tracks come in last, apart from Paradise Gallows, where I think it's 6 out of 9. But usually it's last. Is that a programmatic idea to put New Heaven up front? Because it was also the first single released off of that record?
That really was just a coincidence, to be completely honest. Obviously the track sequence is very important to us.
Yeah.
And I think I might have been the one that said, I think that New Heaven should be first, because I think if you put that record on and put the needle down, that crazy ass guitar riff being the first thing you hear, like, number one, what the fuck are these guys doing? Number two, here we go. Number three, it's kind of a little bit funny. It's just, that's how the record starts, and so, and then we agreed on that, and then we always, named the record after one of the songs, and we just felt that New Heaven was the strongest title for, front runner for being also the title of the record. So it just kind of worked out that way. But I'm glad it worked out that way, because I dig the fact that it's, it's sort of like right in your face, right out of the gate.
Yeah, it's pedal to the metal right away. Did you then at the same time also decide that, okay, if this is the strongest track, then it must be the first single?
Well, we didn't think it was the strongest track necessarily, but just the strongest title. But we also, we kind of wanted to almost throw people for a loop with that one, because it's, as far as I'm concerned, that's sort of the more oddball kind of standout song on the record, because I feel like a lot of the record is a bit more melodically driven, and that one is not melodically driven whatsoever. It's a fucking dissonant mess. So yeah,
that's also something that struck me. That track, as much as it's pedal to the metal, it has a lot of dissonance on it. Were you aware that, looking at your discography, that is some new element for Inter Arma?
Well,
because I think you've never written a track as dissonant as that one.
It's not necessarily new, because Soul for English, the song Soul for English, all the riffs in that song are pretty dissonant. It's more of, it's the first time. See, I always, this is like my weird musician thing. I always think of a riff as like something that's very memorable and catchy. And so my thought process when I was coming up with that was to create something memorable and catchy, but just still dissonant as all get out.
Yeah.
So that, before, when we would write dissonant stuff, it wasn't so much for the sake of it trying to be memorable. It was just like, how fucked up can we make this? But this time around, it was like, how can you write it? Can you, like, can you write that, but just have the most fucked up notes and note clusters as you can possibly get. So that was the impetus for that one.
Definitely achieved it, for sure.
Thank you.
It's as you said, it's a kick-ass intro to the record. I love that. I also love the fact that once again you're including a lot of different elements on the record, and there is something that struck me that I think I have not seen you listed as. Like, you're a band which basically makes, for lack of a better word, extreme metal. I've seen you described as black metal, death metal. Somebody even called it some kind of sludgy grindcore, and I was like, what the fuck? Somebody also called you southern metal, which I think there is something to it, but we'll come to that in a moment. But nobody ever labeled you industrial. And there are tracks on there, and especially Gardens in the Dark, which to me are very industrial, very post-punkish. I'm sure it's not a conscious decision, because if I learned anything out of the 3 years that I'm doing this now, most of the times musicians don't make that much of a conscious decision on a track. But is there something in there that is like influenced by post-punk, by industrial metal? So for my first example that I heard was like Killing Joke.
So I and pretty much all of the band are huge Nine Inch Nails fans. I bought Downward Spiral on tape when I was 11 years old, and I listened to the whole fucking record. I didn't just listen to Closer, and I read the lyrics. I mean, I just listened to it with my Walkman on repeat for. I mean, I still listen to that record probably once every month or two, and it still blows me away to this day. So I've always wanted to try and incorporate some sort of industrial type of element into some of our stuff, and just it either sort of fell by the wayside or we tried something and it didn't quite work out. And so actually the genesis of that song was the drum beat. I just sat down behind my kit one day while I was kind of getting warmed up and just started playing that. I was like, oh shit, this sounds cool, and recorded me playing it for like 15 seconds on my phone. And then the rest of the song, and as soon as I played it, I thought this might be the spark that I was looking for to try and pull off this industrial Nine Inch Nails, whatever, our take on that sort of thing. And we just jammed on it. And I mean, actually, to be completely honest with you, that one kind of came together in the studio, and we didn't really exactly know where it was going to go until we heard Mike's, vocal singing pattern on it. And that's when we sort of
he
did a
keeps
little
it together brilliantly.
Exactly. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. And actually, talk about oddball songs. That was kind of one of the ones that I was like, I mean, I like this and I think it's good, but I don't know if other people are going to dig this. I don't know, because it's kind of new territory for us.
Let me say it this way. Sometimes touching on new territory is a bad idea.
Exactly.
But in this case, it pretty much works. I think it's one of the strongest tracks on the record, to be sure, because I just like the dissonance in the title track. I like it when when a band doesn't repeat itself. And although, of course, we get like some heavy classic rock elements where you have like a wonderful solo in one of the tracks, we have like these tinges of southern metal, but I like the fact that there are tracks on there that Inter Arma has never done this way, and that is cool. I really like that.
Thank you.
And when somebody asked me to describe the record, the first thing that I came up with, I said like, okay, this is their blue record in comparison to Baroness, because I think it takes you a whole step further. Not to say that the other records are bad. No, please don't think that way. But I think this one is like a milestone when it comes to songwriting for Inter Arma. And when we talk about songwriting, to make it clear, you are the main songwriter of the band. But you're at the same time a drummer. So what is for you first, the drums or the guitar? Because I know that you also do that.
I always, when I have this sort of conversation with people, I always say I consider myself a drummer first and foremost. I mean, I've been playing drums since I was 3. It's no pun intended, beaten into me at this point in my life.
It's a good pun.
Yeah. But that said, I've been writing songs since I was 12 or 13 with my first punk band, which I pretty much learned how to play guitar out of necessity because the other guys in the band couldn't write songs. So I was like, all right, I'll learn power chords. I can figure out Ramones songs and we can go from there. And so, I mean, to me, if as a musician, songwriting is the most important thing. And, everyone talks about how great of a guitar player Eddie Van Halen is, and they talk about the tapping and all the technical shit, but he wrote fucking unbelievable songs. I mean, they're as far as rock and roll songs, they're unbelievable. And so with, you know, if you don't have the song, then what the fuck is all the technicality for? I mean, what's the point of even being heavy? Which I think nowadays that sort of sentiment gets lost a lot with some heavier bands. It's like, let's just be as extreme as we possibly can be.
Yeah.
And then you know, the songwriting part of it gets neglected, which, you know, any classic metal record, you know, Morbid Angel, Dominate, like those songs are fucking awesome. They're really well written songs. They just I still listen to that band and like, how the fuck did they write this? Like it's killer and it's cohesive, but like it's just twisting and turning like a snake, like the snake comes slithering. It's crazy. But yeah, it's you got to have a good song, or otherwise, you know, it's just, you can get away with heavy that, or, you know, playing music that way, but you got to have a good song. That's the most important thing. That's why, and I focus on songwriting a lot. I think about it all the time.
So, I mean, like, you being the main songwriter, how much contribution comes from your, apart from the vocals, of course, which is mostly Mike stuff, but how much contribution comes from your other bandmates?
Oh,
How does it work?
There's plenty of contribution from them. For example, Desolation's Heart, Trey wrote all of that one. I actually had very little input on that song. And then another example is Concrete Cliffs. Trey had the main chord progression, and I kind of changed it a little bit, kind of modified it, and then I came up with the other parts. But even in the band room, you know, just little ideas, like a little break in the song or whatever. Everybody contributes ideas that way. It's not just like I'm, you know, a fucking not like Adolf Hitler in the band room dictating everybody. I don't know if that's a bad comparison, but
let's say you're not Frank Zappa, right? You're like
yeah. No.
When you and the guys are writing, and especially when you are starting to get like the first parts together, how important are Mike's vocals for you? Do you already have them, or like a melodic theme in the background, or like at the back of your head, or is that all like he does that all by himself?
He does most of it by himself. There have been a couple occasions. So all of the harsh vocals, I mean, he does all of that. But there have been some occasions in the past where I wrote a vocal melody. So usually if it's something more melodic, if it's on the melodic side of things, it's kind of 50-50. Sometimes I'll come up with the vocal melody, and sometimes Mike will come up with it.
Yeah. What strikes me about Mike's lyrics is his ability to change intonations, vocal styles, rough on the edges at every moment possible, but at the same time also very often crooning. There are tracks on this record where I think like that could be Cave if he had ever done sludge metal.
Yeah.
So how, I mean, like, I don't want to say how lucky, but yeah, basically how lucky might do it. How lucky is it that you have somebody in the band who has such a wide variety of vocal styles? Does that enable you to do more different stuff?
Well, first off, let me say, yes, we are fucking lucky. It's that is not lost on me. And yeah, totally. It opens up tons of avenues. I mean, I'll sometimes fuck it kind of, I mean, I'm not gonna say I want everything to be melodic and singing, but I'm kind of at that point where I'm like, you know, Like let's just sing all the time. Because Mike kind of did hold out on us for a while. We didn't know that he could sing for the first few years, and then we heard him singing, and we were like, "What the fuck, man? What, you could do this, and you didn't tell us?" So yeah, I mean, there's no I don't feel limited ever because I'm thinking, oh well, he's not going to be able to do this type of vocal or whatever, and I have total trust in him that he's going to come up with something appropriate and killer for what we're doing.
Definitely. We'll also come back to Mike's vocals a little later in our infamous quickfire round, but it's really interesting to hear him hold all of it together, which I think is like one of the best trademarks for a metal band singer anyway. What also struck me, and that's one of the reasons why I came up with that Baroness comparison, was you always have had some kind of, or you often, not always, you have had interludes on other records before, but this time you, I think, nailed it even better than before, because Endless Gray, I mean, like, it is an interlude, it's a breather, but at the same time, it's also storytelling-wise, it drives the whole record further. So how important are those interludes for you when you write this stuff? Because it's basically what 2.5 minutes, right?
Yeah, something like that. I'm not going to say that we think they're important. It just sort of it just works out that way sometimes. Like on Sulfur English, there weren't any. I get, what the fuck am I saying? Yeah, there were instrumentals. I've always dug instrumental tracks, and like you said, it does sort of give you a little bit of a break. And especially on a metal record, it's nice to have, little, even if it's like a longer form, like Orion or something like that, it's still cool. I guess I totally take back what I just said. They're very important to me.
Yeah, because I mean, like, they are the breathers, and this time it's also in the middle. It's like a really cool moment to have an instrumental like that. It strikes me that when looking at your oeuvre, at the list of stuff that you have already done, there always is, like, on most of the record, there is always like 1 or 2, 3 songs that are a little different from before, that are a different part of a mosaic that is Inter Arma. Is that important for you as a songwriter, not to repeat yourself, to always come up with a little bit different?
Absolutely. It's something that we strive for every time we're writing new tunes. And definitely, I would say even probably the most on this record, there were songs that were saxed because they kind of sounded like other things. And yeah, I think evolution in music is maybe the most important thing, really. And I say this all the time. I love AC/DC. They're one of my top 5 favorite bands of all time, and I fucking love Cannibal Corpse. But when you buy their records, you know exactly what you're going to be getting, and I love it. I fucking love it. But for me as a musician and us as a band, I think it's just evolve or die. Like you're gonna fucking get left behind if you're just writing the same record over. There's a couple bands you can get away with it, but for the most part, you gotta branch out.
Yeah. Something that I also want to talk about is, and that's the reason why I chose this shirt. You You also give back as a band. For example, you have released a limited edition shirt, which is released to benefit the National Alliance of Mental Illness on mental illness. First of all, how did that collaboration come about, that you support NAMI? And second of all, do you think you can see your band doing stuff like that more in the future?
Yeah, we've played all kinds of benefits in the past, and it's, I mean, let's be honest. Rock and roll, and historically, isn't always the the most charitable shining beacon of goodness in the universe. There's a lot of depravity in this fucking business, and that's putting it lightly. So doing something charitable is, I kind of feel like we almost have to do that sometimes, like, again, kind of going back to hope and using your powers for good and trying to spread joy. I mean, not that we're the biggest band, but we've developed a little bit of a following, and we have a platform. As much as I loathe that word these days, try to use it for some good, and it, like, why not? and
So,
but the first part of your question is, how did that collaboration come about? So the song "Concrete Cliffs," and again, it's more personal for Mike, so I'll leave it a little bit. I'll say it loosely. It's a bit about mental illness and having suicidal thoughts, and instead of saying, this is our song about suicide, like, let's again try to do some good, and basically let people know that this is what the song is about, but here's where we would like you to focus your attention to, not this is the suicide song.
yeah. Did you then approach NAMI saying, like, okay, we would like to do something, we would like to support something? How did that come about?
Yeah, we approached them, and just the idea of tying it all in together with the song and the design for the shirt, and just giving them the proceeds, or most of the proceeds, some of the proceeds. I can't remember what the percentage is, but
what also struck me is that in some ways, you are from Richmond, Virginia, or like the Richmond area, which is a very, very important musical part of Virginia. We have bands like War coming from the area. We also have a shitload of good punk bands from around there, from Avail to the Roots of Rise Against to Strike Anywhere. How do you think does Inter Arma fit into that scene? Or not at all?
That's a great question.
And by the way, I forgot all the cool post-rock bands from Richmond. Shout out to our friends in Shiloh. But you go ahead.
So I would say that the way we fit into it the most is our DIY ethic, because I mean to me the punk scene and music scene and DIY just all go hand in hand. It's you almost can't have one without the other, really.
Mm-hmm.
And contrary to popular belief, we are still very much a DIY band. I mean, we don't have any outside funding. Let's put it that way. we work our asses off, and we've toured our asses off, and we've eaten a lot of shit over the years. You know, our first tour van was a 1977 Ford Econoline van that was rusted out, and you know, we toured all over the fucking country in that thing, and I can
Until it broke apart underneath you.
Yeah, I can remember pulling up to venues and people going, "How on earth did you get this thing here?" So the DIY thing is very much a part of what we do, and it's a big part of the Richmond scene. As far as musically, I mean, fuck, we don't really seem to fit in anywhere musically, other than the fact that we're a metal band.
Yeah. You have mentioned touring, and as I've already hinted at before, you are playing a special show at Roadburn on Thursday, where you are going to premiere, well, new record in full. How nervous are you?
I'm not nervous.
Yeah. But
actually,
it is some kind of special thing, right? To premiere a record before it's even out in full.
Yeah, yeah, we've never done that, and I'm sure bands have done it in the past, but I don't think it's something that happens very often. No, I'm excited. I think everyone will dig it, and you know, we've been rehearsing it. I actually just came from band practice right before I started talking to you, and we've been playing the record, and it sounded good.
It also shows a lot of trust in the Roadburn crew, in your band, and in that record, right? That's also some kind of cool confirmation of what you've been doing lately.
Oh, fuck yeah. I mean, when we sent it to Becky and Walter, and the idea was presented to them, and then they heard it and they're like, fuck yeah, let's do this. It's like, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better.
You can be proud of that record for sure. It's a really cool thing. We've also already talked about it before the beginning of this interview, and I'm very happy to do this right now. You told me, and now we can already disclose that for transparency's sake, that you're going to play a secret gig at Roadburn. Who came up with that idea?
I don't quite remember. It was, oh, shit. I'm not sure. Maybe it was Walter. Maybe it was Becky. It was somebody in the Roadburn camp's idea to do that. Yeah. It wasn't our idea, because we originally thought that we were just going to play the record, and they're like, well, if you guys are going to be here, fucking make it worth your while and do this other thing. Playing two more sets.
Ooh.
So we're playing a classic set, and then we're playing the cover set.
Let's talk about the cover set, because it also connects very nicely to something that you guys have done before. A few years ago, you've released a record called Garber's Day Revisited. First of all, wonderful homage, of course, to Metallica. But how do you choose the songs that you want to cover? Is it spontaneous, or is there some kind of real idea behind it?
I'll use the Garber's Day record for the example. When we were figuring out what we were going to do with that, we wanted it to sort of let people know what our influences were, but also kind of have fun with it. That's why some songs we fucked with, and like the Ministry song, you know, it doesn't sound, it definitely sounds more like us. But then like Running Down a Dream, it's pretty much like the record. And I feel like Ministry and Nine Inch Nails and you know, even like Neil Young might be some of the more obvious influences, whereas the Tom Petty song might not be too much of an obvious influence. So we wanted to kind of let people in a little bit, and like, this, you know, this is the shit that we dig. And And Prince, like I love Prince so much, and I don't know if you know the story behind that. That song wasn't supposed to be released, and then
Okay.
Relapse heard it, and then it's out in the ether now. But like people wouldn't necessarily hear us and go, "Oh, these guys must be big Prince fans." So that was the thought process behind that.
For all the Europeans out there, there is something that I've noticed over the years, that we here in Europe tend to underestimate the importance of Prince on the American alternative rock scene. A few months ago, I've spoken to Stephen Brodsky, and he said that Prince is one of the most important influences on his songwriting. And it seems to me that that is true for a lot of American musicians, which is a cool thing. Now the cover set that you are about to play at Roadburn, I know that it's not going to be Garber's Day revisited, but how did you choose the songs for that without telling us too much? Although you could say anything you want to, because it's already over. But how did you choose the songs for that?
Well, fuck, I might as well just go ahead and tell you. It's all Neil Young.
Ooh, that again, everybody, brings us to that connection to Cave In, because I still remember the year that Adam died, and they played a wonderful set at Roadburn, and they had one cover, I think, on it, maybe two, and one of them was a Neil Young track. That is the only track that is not available on the vinyl edition of Cave In at Roadburn. So Neil Young, let's talk a little bit about him then. Like, how important is he for you as a musician and also as a music fan?
I mean, fuck, Neil is like top 5, top 10. And, talk about always wanting to evolve and branching out and pretty much doing whatever the fuck he pleases as an artist. How do you not respect that? Even if you don't dig every record he ever put out. He put out a goddamn like EDM record in the early 80s. It just music is still art, and I think that gets lost a lot these days because it's viewed as a fucking commodity so often.
It's too available.
It's so available, and a true artist does whatever they want to do, and Neil Young has pretty much always done whatever the fuck he wants to do, and that to me is the shit. I mean, and fuck, I mean, you mentioned Zappa earlier and Prince. Those are three people who do whatever they want musically, and
we didn't give a fuck about it, right?
They are not bothered by anybody's thoughts or opinions on what the fuck it is they're doing, and that's art. That's what real art is. You're doing what moves you, how you feel. You put that out into the universe, and yeah, I mean, how can you argue with that?
Not at all. Not at all. And then I also see some kind of line to you, because, as you've mentioned before, one of the most important things for you is no redundancy. With New Heaven, you definitely achieve that. Definitely, no redundancy. So first of all, thanks for all the insight into the new record, for disclosing so much of what you're going to do at Roadburn, or for everybody who's watching it, what you have done at Roadburn. But nobody leaves the Veil of Sound interview without having to go through the infamous quickfire round. You will get a few couples. For example, what do you like more, AC/DC with Bon Scott or Brian Johnson? Pepsi or Coca-Cola? Richmond with the horrible statues or without? And you have to choose one of them and give a short explanation. And everybody who's been watching us over the years knows that very many of my questions stem from the conversation that I'm having with interesting people like you. So the first thing that I wrote down is Death Heaven. Which record do you like more, Roads or Sunbather?
Probably Sunbather, because it really just that record takes me back to being on tour with those guys and all of the fucking killer memories of being on tour with those guys.
Yeah. There is one thing I would also have chosen Sunbather for one various reason. For one very reason. 13 years ago, when I was going through a very dark time in my life, a Sunbather was the stuff that I would have on my earphone falling asleep. I don't know how it went, but I slept like a baby. When we talk about extreme metal, we also should talk about this thin line between grindcore and death metal. So I'll give you two bands: Carcass versus Nile.
I'm probably going to catch shit for this, but I'm going Nile. I've fucking, man, it's actually very funny you ask that, because I've had multiple Nile conversations over the course of the last 2 or 3 days with different people about all things Nile. But I mean, arguably the heaviest death metal song ever written is Kafir. That song is so fucked up heavy and just ridiculous. Name a death metal song that's heavier.
Heart. At the top of my list, at the tip of my tongue, I wouldn't come up with one. That is
there you go. The only close, maybe second, is Teeth in the Red by Dead Congregation.
Mm-hmm. Then question, what is your favorite Nile album? If you can choose one.
Probably Those Whom the Gods Detest. Just because I talk about a specific memory to a thing. I remember when that came out, and my buddy was like, they have this new drummer and he's fucking unbelievable. And I remember the first track they released, I don't know why the hell I remember all this, but the first track they released was Last of the Slave Stick. And it's like 180, 190 BPM for the whole thing. I'm like, this isn't that fast. And then it gets to the bridge and he like shoots up to 240 or 250 BPM or whatever. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this guy's fucking good. Little did I know it was George fucking Colias.
Let's go even a little bit more classic. And I know amongst death metal fans, that is a question similar to Beatles versus Stones. Morbid Angel versus Death.
Morbid Angel. Again, probably catching shit from people, but Morbid Angel's just got the stank. They're fucking dirty. Like
that's true.
And I love Death, but Death is very refined, especially, once Sean Reinhart and Gene Hoglan got behind the kit. And I love those records, but to me, you can hear how fucking crazy Trey Azagthoth is when they play. Like, he's a fucking nut job, and it just comes through, and I love it. It's just dirty.
In reference to your shirt, I want to give you 2 Led Zeppelin albums, but not one of the numbered ones. That would be too easy. Houses of the Holy versus Physical Graffiti.
Houses of the Holy is my favorite Zeppelin record.
Yeah, that's easy.
And there's more musical memories. When I was in my dad's cover band when I was a little kid, we covered The Ocean, and there's the weird time flip in there. I'm not even really 100% sure what it is. I think it's technically like 17/8 or something fucking crazy like that.
Yeah.
And I had a hard time the first band practice where we started learning it, getting that flip. And I was 7 years old, 8 years old, and I cried because I couldn't get it. I clearly remember that.
I'm 7
And then
years old, I cannot do it. Yeah.
and I think the next band practice I came back and I got it.
And Dad was proud of you, I'm very sure. When we talk about Zeppelin, and I talk to a drummer, I of course have to give you a drummer question. Which one is more influential on you yourself? Bonham from Led Zeppelin or Pert from Rush?
Bonham, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
I dig Rush, but I'm not like super familiar with their whole catalog. So I'm a fan, but not a super fan. But I'm a fucking super fan of Zeppelin. There's no stone unturned in that fucking catalog. And yeah, I mean, Bonham. I mean, fucking what? Look at my drum set. It's basically a copy of his kit, except it's 2 bass drums instead of 1. And feel the behind the beat thing, and just like playing straight through the riff and not trying to play something that's rhythmically right on with the riff, but just playing through, just instead of like, to me, that's a lot of where the power of that band comes through. And that's one of my big takeaways from him, is just a big ass drum beat.
Yeah, and there's also something that, that is also one of those questions: who was the best drummer ever? Bonham would be right there in that discussion for me, one of the best drummers ever. And I would also have chosen Bonham because Pert might have been technically better. But when it comes to the feel for the song, it's hard to beat Bonham.
100%.
You have proclaimed the love for Trent Reznor. And the next question is not which record do you like more, but which record is the better one? Downward Spiral versus The Fragile.
Gotta go Downward Spiral. I mean, it's just, to me, it's perfect. There's no moment on that record where I've lost interest. It's just, and not to say that I feel that way about The Fragile, but it's just, and still 30 years later, 30 fucking years. Jesus Christ, I'm getting old.
Come on, you're younger than me. Don't bother.
It's every time I listen to it, still I hear something new that I hadn't caught before. And yeah, it's fucking unbelievable. How the fuck did he do that? He sampled a Polaroid camera, the sound of a Polaroid camera. Who in the fuck thinks of that?
Yeah, exactly. Because doing it is easy, but like thinking of it, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
A few punk questions. As you are playing Roadburn and doing this covers set, I know a certain sludge band from Baton Rouge who did a similar thing a few years ago when they aka Vow, played a Misfits cover set at Roadburn. So my question is, which Danzig band is better for you, or more important for you, Misfits or Samhain? Samhain, I don't even know. Misfits?
Misfits, yeah. I fucking love the Misfits. And I mean, just killer, catchy, great songs. It's way up there as far as punk rock goes for me.
Mm-hmm. 2 punk bands from Richmond. And I'm dropping this with nearly every Richmond person because I know that one of them is usually overlooked. Strike Anywhere versus Avail.
I think I'm going Strike Anywhere on this one. I don't know. They're like, Strike Anywhere feels a little bit more dangerous to me.
Mhm. Definitely. I can totally understand that. We have been talking about that little sludge southern metal thing in Inter Arma. So I'll give you two of the classic swamp rock bands, the Allman Brothers versus Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Oh my God, you're killing me right now.
I do.
This, I mean, that's like you fucking Skynyrd.
Mhm.
Skynyrd had the songs. I mean, their songwriting chops were fucking unbelievable. I mean, Alan Collins wrote Freeburg when he was 17 years old. Come on, that's ridiculous.
And the last one, that comes a little tongue in cheek. When I listened, as I said before, when I listened to Mike's vocals, I think it's amazing. But who do you think is he closer to? Greg Puciato from Dillinger Escape Plan or the almighty Nick Cave?
Tonally, he's definitely closer to Nick Cave because he's got that big, rich baritone voice like Nick Cave. But from a technical standpoint, he's definitely closer to Puciato just because he can do so many things with his voice. So it's kind of a little bit 50-50 on that one.
I think with that 50-50, we can close this one. TJ, thanks for all the insights into the new record. Thanks for talking about some stuff that, I love, and also showing us a little bit more about what Inter Arma is all about. For everybody who sees this, if you still haven't listened to New Heaven, stop whatever you're doing, sit down for, I think it's like 50 minutes. Sit down for 50 minutes, take your time, listen to that record, and the day is going to be a little better after that. 100%. So, TJ, thanks, and now your chance for any final last words.
Well, to answer your question, the first three quickfire questions, Bon Scott, Coca-Cola, Richmond's way fucking better without the statues. Fuck those fucking statues.
I love
it. But also, I hope everyone digs the new record. Please come see us live. We're going to be in Europe in the fall. We're still figuring some shit out with dates and finalizing some things, but we're fucking stoked to be getting back over there and shoving this new record down everybody's throats. And yeah, fucking.
So then there's nothing. Then there's nothing left more for me to say. Then, when we are recording this, see you in a few days. When this is out, see you in a few months.
Hell yeah!
Enjoy the rest of your day, man. Bye bye.
Thank you.